The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
A quick word about this month's FujiCast and some show news before the live show recorded at the House of Photography. From September, the show is going bi-monthly. Yes, we're adding an extra edition back in as we head into autumn and then the darker winter months, in the Northern Hemisphere at least. So keep your questions for the show coming in to click at fujicast.co.uk and of course through the Facebook group as well. We'd like to thank Andreas Georghiades, Group Marketing Manager at Fujifilm, for hosting our show at the House of Photography in London, and the fantastic team for your help too. Prior to the event, we were treated to 2 photographic talks in FujiCast's Got Talent. Both full recordings will be featured on our Patreon page very soon, where we'll also be able to share some of their pictures too. But here's a minute of each before we start today's show. Dan Croft made his first photographic presentation ever, talking about projects, why they're precious, and of course his own project.
When I first started putting together ideas for a photographic project back in 2017, I needed to select something that was close to me, easily accessible, and something that interested me. As with a lot of people, I didn't really like where I live much at all. I live in North Dorset countryside that borders on Somerset and Wiltshire. To most people, a beautiful area, endless countryside, views, National Trust land, and just generally spectacular scenery. But beyond the town centre, it can be described as dull with not a lot going on. At first, I was completely stuck with what to do or where to start. I wanted to do something over a long period of time with the end goal of having an exhibition and a book or a zine. So I started walking with my camera in the summer evenings, pretty much through the fields and paths that surround me, taking photos of areas I had passed many times in the past and paid no attention to. Jumping forward to December 2021, I held an exhibition based on what I started in 2017. It was titled Rain Clouds Above the Dark Trees. Along the way, I had different ideas, different directions. Do I add portraits of people? Do I stick with monochrome? Is what I am doing interesting enough? So many questions. I think it's important to question what you are doing. It helps you learn and grow, but not too much as it becomes counterproductive. You'll find yourself asking questions instead of taking photos.
And then Cara Mew talked about reclaiming your family album and storytelling.
I'm really fascinated by the stories that we share as humans to one another. So it's a really intimate way of getting to know other people and listening to them. And I really like the way that when you meet someone for the first time or it's a friend and they become really animated with the stories that they share. And I really enjoy watching people share something that they really love and the belly fire that it gives them. It's exciting to watch people, and when you share stories, it's full of complexity and it can be full of intimacies, and it can be difficult. It can be challenging to speak to each other, but when you are sharing stories orally, there is always a connection between each other, and it's the same thing with photography. There is a connection there. So be it you are watching the connection through your lens with your subject matters, or you are connecting as a photographer and the people that you're photographing as well. That connection is really important.
Our thanks to Dan and Cara. So now it's great to be back on the road with a live show, and fantastic to return to Fujifilm's amazing House of Photography. Here is the latest FujiCast live. 2 and a bit years ago, we were here, Kev. It was BC, as I call it now. Kev said to me, he said, will we go into lockdown, Neil? I said, Kev, don't be stupid. Get another beer in. And that was the last beer Kev bought me for 878 days. But now he's brought a fridge load with him.
Hey.
And guess what? We're both on 0 and water.
0 alcohol, yeah.
But what happened in
It's nice,
878 days? I had an affair with Canon.
Ooh.
Kev became a vegan. And a judo champion. I don't know how many of you know that he's actually going for his black belt this weekend. Incredible. Yeah. And Andreas hand-built me and released, after so many years
of moaning, yeah.
of moaning, an XH2S, just for me.
Just for you.
Just for me. Welcome to the FujiCast live from the House of Photography, Covent Garden in London, after 878 days! So good to be back. As normal, we've got the FujiCast live show. We have got a live audience of at least 78 people. And it's lovely to see you all. Thank you very much for coming. You're going to be asking questions. This is a bit like the BBC's Question Time, but a lot more entertaining and not quite so political. So please, during the show, we as always, we require, we absolutely exist on your questions. So please don't be shy. Neil Ford is going to be our microphone wrangler. So he will be moving amongst the audience swiftly and quietly with his microphone. Please do not be shy. Ask as many questions as you like. As you know, I am usually not so good at answering them, but thank God we've got Andreas and we've got Kev. Otherwise, we really would be in trouble. Should we go straight into questions? Let's do that.
No.
No?
No. I need to explain the questions.
Oh.
So the questions are all on you,
Yeah.
okay, which I know is a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes. So the first person to put their hand up will get a little gift. And thereafter, the gifts get a little bit lesser and lesser. But everybody who asks a question, unless we have more than about 400 questions,
I think
probably
we'll
won't
be
get
here,
much.
yeah.
But before we do that, thank you so much to Dan and Kara. That was absolutely amazing.
Yes.
So another round of applause for them. And they can have the first gifts. Now, Dan, I know that you said that you can't even do a camera strap. Is that right? Where is he? Where is he gone? He's at the back, right? So you can have the camera strap. So you have to come and get it. Come and get it. Come and get it. So that's a Peak Design camera strap. By the way, all of these gifts were kindly donated by Andreas at
Yes,
Fujifilm.
yes.
Yeah, so don't thank us, thank him. Kara, you've got a special writing pad for writing down all of your special messages for your lovely pictures. It's got a special pen, and it's brown. All the others are black. So this is very special. It's
a limited edition.
Limited edition pad. It's got no writing in it already, so it's brand new. Where is she? There we go. Hold on.
This is like a wedding. Have you got any flowers you're going to bring out there in a second?
I actually have got a couple. Let's do this now. Hold on a sec. This is for Neil, our wandering rover, because I don't think we thanked him last time, not properly.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Do you drink red wine? It's posh, I promise, even though it's in a Tesco bag. Thank you very much. Nice one. And actually, so while we're just at this, I got to say, I got to sit down.
Oh my God, are you doing the judo black belt?
It doesn't bode well for this.
It doesn't, does it?
I got. So we are going to say, as part, all of us, right, are going to say thank you to Andreas and Carl especially, because they are the people who generally answer all of the techie questions in the Facebook group, and they don't have to do that, even though it's like a Fuji-orientated thing. So we have to say a big thank you to Andreas and Carl. Carl's not here, so we got you a bottle of wine as well.
You shouldn't have.
But I was going to give it to Carl, frankly.
Oh, right,
but
yes. I get it by default.
Well done, Andreas. Next, making the best man speech. Right. Let's start with the questions then. I do have some spare that have been written in over the last couple of weeks. But I don't think we're going to need these. I think we're going to be okay with the questions that you have. And now you've seen there's a magic bag of goodies. It might make things a little bit more attractive to put your hand up first. So who we are, we got... They had no intention of asking questions.
No, the question is, can I have something?
Yeah, it is. Who are we going to go? Let's go. So please, as you go through your questions, give your name first and then ask your question, please.
Hi, my name's Joey Campagna. I'm from New York.
Yeah.
How did the FujiCast come to be?
Wow.
What's the origin story?
Don't look at me.
I always look at Andreas to answer everything. Well, I had a podcast first called Breathe. I did about 8 episodes. And then parked it really for a little while. And one day myself and Kev were having a chat. And we decided to give it a go. I mean, our initial conversations were, how long would this podcast be? And Kev said, no more than 20 minutes. Surely people will be bored. And it's ended up being a lot longer.
He says that before every episode, doesn't he?
So that was it. And then we just carried on doing it. In podcasting world, they say if you do 7, then you've got a podcast. Prior to that, it's just a hobby. And we've gone well past 7.
And how long ago was that now? We celebrated 2 years in February 2020.
Yeah, so 4 and a bit years then.
Yeah,
4 and a bit years.
Is it?
Must be.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we did have the pandemic in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. So
Can't be 4 years.
Was it, what, 3.5?
3 and a bit. It was kind of my idea for the Fuji element of things, I think. You wanted to do a podcast, I wanted to do the Fuji
Yeah, I wanted to do real
side.
crime with Kev.
Yeah.
But
There's still time. And that was it.
we did. I think we toyed for a little while with doing a wedding podcast, didn't we? But that
Didn't really appeal, did it?
No. Not that there's anything wrong with weddings, clearly.
In terms of weddings and divorces, or just...
Oh, I can talk a lot about that. I could do that all day long.
Yeah. Right. Who else has got a question there? Let's move it across.
More one for you, Neil, regarding your affair. Has the recent announcement from Fuji and their camera, could that possibly bring you back?
I don't think I really made a grand announcement myself. I know that wasn't what you said, but no, I mean, the reason I've talked about this on the podcast, haven't I? I mean, I was a Canon shooter for many years. Absolutely love the colour. All RAW files are not equal, and I was just able to do what I wanted to do for weddings with the Canon files. It seemed to me a little bit more easily. But actually, you know, when you look back, and I recently had to... I've been putting my long-last website together, and the strike in London next week has helped me actually focus. I can't do anything in London next week, so I've actually put 3 or 4 days aside to do the website at long last.
I've had to cancel my workshop.
I know you did, yeah. I was looking at a load of files the other day, and I thought, do you know what? Actually, it's now pretty much evens, really, the pictures that I like the most. Kev said something to me, and I've always been a bit dismissive over this. So I'm going to be public now. Those that went on the photo walk earlier with me, and I said, you know, Kev was right about something. And I said, Kev has always said to me, it's a lot more fun shooting with a Fuji. I said, oh, get away with it. It's got nothing to do with fun. It's all to do with how easy it is to, you know, to wrangle the files afterwards. And I don't want to have fun. I just want to shoot a job and get on with it. But he's absolutely right. It is a lot more fun. And I've been badgering Andreas for so long for this XH2S.
When did we do the...
Probably from day one.
No, I can remember you first badgering me when we were
in that
filming...
pub across the way. But...
No, it was before that. It was when we were filming the Magnum photographer in Brighton.
Well, that's ages ago.
Yeah. And you were...
Well, I shot that with an XT2, I think.
Yeah. It was back then that you started going, yeah, but it needs to do this and that.
Well, actually, you did give me an XH1, which I almost promptly lost in Brighton when I was walking along the front in the dark with it, and some guy came over to me and looked like he was going to take it off me. And I ran into an art gallery and stayed in there for about 15, 20 minutes, and he went away. Yeah. I thought I couldn't begin to think of how I'd have said, Andreas, you know that only XH1 that's in the UK, it's been nicked. Did that answer your question?
Just about. Does that mean you're coming back?
It does. Yeah. The XH2S is the push that I needed, really.
Yeah.
I really could have gone to an XT4, I suppose, but I really do like the grip. There is something about the ergonomics of the XH that, for me, is spot on. And I know it's not the same for you, though, Kev, is it?
No, I don't like the design at all.
Well,
but
you still ordered one.
I did order one, yeah, because it's a machine. So this is kind of a juxtaposition question, I suppose. Then, in terms of the PASM dials and all of that stuff that we see on the XH2S, XS10
and
GFX. I think a lot of people are like a little bit concerned that little things like this, or the X Pro, XT, is that kind of the 3 different paradigms of design going to carry on? Or are we likely to see the PASM dial hell appear on other cameras?
No, I think in short, we won't see the PASM dial appear on all the other models. That'll be the quickest and easiest way to answer it. ultimately, we started out this journey 12 years ago now with the X100, and that had very classic look and feel, and we built our user base with that ergonomics and orientation. But we've got to a point where we also need to appeal to other brand customers that are coming over to our system, and it is a personal preference in terms of the button layout and too many switches and dials and things like that. And some people find our system intimidating because of that, and they want more simple way of switching, and that's where the PASM logic comes in. So the first camera to really have that was the XS10, and that was designed for sort of like DSLR shooters who weren't getting a mirrorless camera from their brands, and we felt that was an opportunity for us to switch people over into mirrorless, and we've always said XH is sort of like more professionally minded, but there will be traditional classic dial cameras coming out.
Right, next question. Who have we got?
Hi, Simon. So, in your retreat back to Fuji and the wonderful house that it is, are you going to go for an H2S, or are you going to wait for the H2?
Oh, no, definitely yes. I don't need something with a lot more resolution really for the sort of jobs that I'm doing. It's absolutely perfect. So I'm very happy that I'm really pleased that this is the first iteration to come out actually.
Andreas, are there any other advantages other than the larger sensor size that we can look forward to perhaps in the H2?
Right, so I need to work out what has already been said and what hasn't been said.
Think of the money.
So I think what officially has been said is that we are developing a 40 megapixel high resolution APS-C sensor, the X-Trans CMOS 5 HR, and that we will be releasing the XH2. That will be the first camera with that sensor. What we haven't stated is all the video modes, if it's exactly the same body, etc., etc. So let's work out the best way to answer it. Are there going to be any surprises for people? I don't think so. The XH2S was announced first because it is the flagship in terms of speed, performance, and things like that. And our management always said that the reason we were waiting for so long to get an XH1 replacement, so like the next level, was because we needed to wait for a new sensor and new processor to do it justice. Because we announced the XH1 at the back end of the life of a sensor and processor, and although it was the most advanced in terms of camera body, it wasn't the most advanced internal. So we learned from our mistakes and we flipped it on its head, and we've announced the most advanced camera that we can make in X series, and that's the XH2S. And then there will be for those people that want higher resolution, there will be another version coming out, the XH2. But I mean, you can make assumptions all you want in terms of will it be the same body and things like that? Will it be the same screen orientation? Will it have the same memory card slots? We've got 2 and a bit months to wait.
Now that the XH2 is out, is this time for me to start bugging you about the XH3?
You can.
Do you think is it something you can give an indication on whether we'll see that same kind of idea in other cameras? So might we see XT5S, XT5, X Pro? What are we on now? 4S,
yeah.
X Pro 4.
So let's have a think. So historically, we would launch a sensor and processor. So XT3 back in September 2018, we launched the X-Trans CMOS 4 and the X Processor 4, and then pretty much every 6 months after that, we had a new sensor and processor, a new camera come out with that sensor and processor. And what happened was that everyone felt it's relatively difficult for people to go, well, hang on a minute, that's got the same sensor and processor, why haven't I got exactly the same features? So selling someone up from an XT30 to an XT3, it's not about the image quality because in essence they've both got exactly the same image quality. I will get to your answer. It's just okay. Now, what we've realised through the marketplace as it is in terms of people buying, it's a lot easier to sell someone up on a different sensor. So if you go, right, okay, you want faster readout or you want higher resolution, it's a lot cleaner rather than saying, oh, you need a bigger resolution viewfinder or you need 2 memory card slots or weather resistant. They're nuances that the mass consumer doesn't understand. So do I envisage us releasing more cameras with this dual sensor, so X-Trans CMOS 5 SR and HR? No, is the short answer, because I think it will just get far too confusing of the range. I think what will end up happening is we'll cherry pick which sensor to use in which camera body so that it fits the right target consumer at that sort of price point in that camera.
Okay, next question.
Jake Hilder. I've always found mounted flash has been a bit overlooked in the Fuji lineup. Everyone seems to go to Godox for kind of Fuji flashes and stuff like that. I was just wondering if there's anything in development Fuji-wise for flashes that might kind of link to the system a little bit more.
Are we working on any flashes? Not that I'm aware of, and that's a genuine not that I'm aware of accessory. Flash has always been one of those where, as you say, from a third-party support, we've always had the likes of Nissin, Godox, Profoto in recent years. They've always offered a good enough, an excellent flash system in many cases, and I think what we realised from the launch of the EFX 500 back in 2016, when we launched the XT2, is that you need to have a whole system of flashes, and right now the resources aren't there to develop that, and hence why we've gone to a third party and said, right, actually, can we rebadge yours, add a couple of features, and you make it for us? And that was the latest flash, the i60 equivalent. So it is, I don't want to say a criticism. I mean, the app, that's a criticism. But the flashes tend to be more of a nice to have, in terms of people would like to have one brand to do everything, but right now, resource-wise, we wouldn't. Yeah. We're not looking at doing more flashes. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously coming from Canon originally, there's certain features where they kind of linked up the camera. Like if you're shooting auto ISO and you turn the flash on, it'd default to ISO 400, so you could instantly start shooting. Whereas now you kind of have to turn the flash on, you have to change your ISO to whatever you need, or you forget and you're shooting at like 6400 ISO.
Yeah.
With the flash and stuff like that, so it's quite frustrating if you use flash a lot. So I don't know if there's any way of kind of implementing things on the camera which would work with those flashes.
I mean, like anything, is it possible? Yes. Yeah. Is it on the cards? Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. All right.
But it's quite easy to start a thread saying a wish list, and we do read them.
Yeah.
And we do pass that feedback on. We have regularly catch-ups with the product planners in Japan.
Yeah.
And requests and things like that.
Right, who are we going with now? There we go.
Hi, my name's James. I was going to ask about an X Pro 4, but I think Kev kind of asked about that, and just going to gauge a reaction.
He's looking at you.
Yeah.
Well, what's the question?
Will we see one in the next 12 months?
I don't know.
Thank you very much.
That was a short question.
It's a short question. I can ask another question about the app.
So when people ask, is like, well, are you going to make one? Well, yeah, we are going to make one.
Yeah.
The way that I answer the question is the X Pro 1 was launched in 2012. I think it was February 2012 officially it got launched. The X Pro 2 was launched in January 2016. The X Pro 3 was launched in November 2020. So it's roughly every 2019. Yes, that was it. November 2019. So it's a rough cycle of X Pro every 4 years. So I don't see that changing.
2019, 2020, 2021.
Take your shoes and socks
2022.
Is that 4 years?
Yeah.
3 years?
So if they carry on launching cameras on that schedule, you're looking at November, December 2023. Realistically, you're not going to launch a camera in 2023, so I'd see it maybe early 2024. Based on that launch schedule. That is not me saying it's going to launch on that day or
I'm writing it down.
Caveat.
Andreas
based
said.
on
Start saving that.
So yeah, I mean the problem you have with any you develop a new sensor and processor, and immediately everyone goes, well, I want X camera, and it's not possible to launch every camera in at the same time. Again, going back to the cycles of how things get launched. XT3 was September 2018. 6 months later, it was XT30. 6 months later, it was X Pro 3. 4 months later, it was X1. So there is an amount of time needs to pass, and for every person that's shouting at us for an X Pro 4, there's 5 people shouting at us for an XT5. There's someone shouting at us for an XE. What would it be? 5. There's someone else shouting for an XT40. So it's just weighing up what is the priority. And trying to release them in times. But when we have the next X Summit in September, we'll announce some new stuff there, and then I'm sure we'll have again people saying, but I wanted this camera coming out and what have you. So it's the merry-go-round that we're on.
Okay. Let's go for another question. Hands held high at the House of Photography, please, all the way across that way.
Okay, hi, my name is Daniel. My question is that the XH2S autofocus performance is, as I understand, is due to the stack sensor. With 40 megapixels, the XH2, can we expect somewhat similar autofocus performance with a non-stacked sensor?
So there's 3 things that the XH2S, the reason for the autofocus performance. One is the stack sensor, so you're getting the faster readout speed of that. 2 is the actual processor itself, much quicker. And 3 is the autofocus algorithm. So if you eliminate the stack sensor from the equation, you'll still have 2 out of the 3 elements with the XH2. So I suppose the question is, how good is the autofocus going to be on the XH2 versus the XH2S? I don't know. I have guesstimates in my head, percentage-wise. The XH2S will be faster because the sensor is faster, and that's why you're paying a premium for the stack sensor technology. Will you get a much better performance autofocus than the 4th generation? Yes, you will, because you've got the new processor, the new AF algorithm. What is that as a percentage? I simply don't know, and I can't even guess.
Thanks very much. Right, who are we going to next?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Away from sort of the technical questions, really, a question that's asked to the FujiCast guests, kind of flipped. So I think the question is, if you could choose any photographer, living or deceased, to spend a day taking photographs with, who would it be to all 3?
Wow. Go on, Andreas, you go first.
Oh, I'm rubbish at this question.
Okay, then when do we get an X80?
That one's easy. Alive or deceased?
Yeah.
Thing is, I'm really bad. There's going to come out really bad. I like what I like, but I don't specifically follow I don't know lots of photographers by name, sort of thing. So it's going to sound rubbish, but it would be my grandfather who got my dad into photography, and I'd be asking him what was it that he wanted, what was his motivation, as it were, with photography. And so, like, because when going back to Kara's comments about taking pictures of the everyday, we're blessed in the ability to take thousands of pictures every day, and it doesn't cost us a penny. But go back a few years, and obviously you had to be much more mindful about the photo you were taking, and had to be not staged, but you had to be a lot more considered. So it'd be my grandfather to find out why he started taking photography, and because he didn't follow it through. He started and then didn't follow it through.
I would. My answer to this question would probably change week by week. But only the other day I found out about Bailey's advanced stages of dementia. I thought you know, wouldn't it be amazing to go back, 2-3 years, just to go for a walk around the East End with Bailey and talk about the old haunts that he used to photograph and the stories that he had. So I'm going to choose him. I think I agree with you though. It changes probably all the time. Kev,
He'd just tell you to f off.
probably would. And you know what? I'd enjoy it.
I think I would go for Darcy Padilla.
Yeah.
She's still alive. She's still a very active photographer. Beautiful social documentarian, wonderful black and whites. Yeah, just ace.
Yeah.
Darcy Padilla.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great question. Right, let's move the microphone around here.
Hi guys, I'm David. I've just got a question for the three of you, and then possibly a QQ at the end. I was just wondering if either of you could go back to like a moment in your lifetime before you were into photography, to have a camera in your hand at that time. Where would you go back to? And also the question at the end, can I get a shout out from the bouquet chicken?
I don't have him with me. I've got Kev's horse.
Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, nice.
And of course, we've got the lovely Gemma. Do you want to go first with this one, Kev? Go on.
Cripes. I think. Well, I've got a couple of. Yeah, one I'm not going to say.
That's the one we want to know about.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I probably will then.
Be careful.
No, I won't. I can't. No, I can't.
I can edit it out.
No,
he
I
says.
Can't. Yeah. So in that case,
I tell you what, on the Patreon,
don't you go first?
If you join Patreon, Kev will tell that story. How about that? All right. Well, I'll save you for a second then. I mean, there's. Can I give two? Certainly, I would love to go back to photograph my grandma's house. Now, Kara I think this is probably Kara talking about legacy, I'm sure. But my grandma grew up in Winchmore Hill, which is close to Enfield, North London. And she had this amazing house. And it was really, I mean, I don't think it really changed since the end of the Second World War. My father had posters up on the wall, and they were of all the movements of the troops and all that kind of stuff. They still had the Bakelite fittings for the electricity, and they were were they two? Did we have two? Was it 2-pin at one stage in the UK? Whatever it was complete. I mean, it was a death trap, this house. And underneath the stairs, it was shored up with oak beams that my grandfather, who I never was fortunate enough to meet, he'd put those in because Dad's mum didn't want to see him go away. A lot of children were evacuated out of London, and she couldn't bear to be without him. So he slept in a sort of Harry Potter style underneath the stairs that were shored up by railway sleepers that somehow my grandfather managed to get during the war. I'd love to go back to that. And then the only other one would be all that time I spent in broadcasting where my dad had bought me a camera and said, there we go, son, you meet lots of famous people, and I never took one single picture, really. Go on, Kev, tell us about this girlfriend of yours.
No. I'd
just tell us, Kev.
No, I think I'd like to go back and take pictures of petrol when it was £1.40 a litre. That's what I'd like to do.
Or 70 pence a gallon.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a really tricky. Like, part of me wants to be totally obtuse and say I'd love to, seen pictures of my own birth, which sounds a bit perverse, I think, doesn't it? But something like that.
I'm just going to write down here.
Other than that,
counselling for Kev on Monday.
Yeah, nothing's interesting has happened in my life.
Kev.
I honestly cannot think of one thing, apart from grandparent, all that kind of stuff, But I can't think of.
What about all your rugby and?
Yeah, but that's stuff, isn't it?
I've got a different problem. I've had a camera since I was 7.
Oh, that is a problem then.
So I've been documenting things for a while, but as you said, it was back then it was you're documenting something for a reason rather than documenting the everyday, and that's really stuck with me. I don't have photographs of my grandparents, aunts and uncles that are no longer here. Just the everyday stuff of that I think back when I smell something or whatever. So I'm struggling to think of something that I haven't got a photograph of that I would want that isn't what we've already discussed about family members and what have you that aren't here. But holidays, special events, and things. I've always had a camera. It's like going back to when I was 7, a 110 camera where it was like proper idiot proof, to an APS camera and all of that through the years. Because I've worked in a camera shop since when I was 16. So I've always been with camera, boringly.
No, not at all. I think it's a good thing. I think our kids are more likely to have a really good way of documenting their life because they take pictures of everything. I don't think if they were up here on this stage in 20 years' time, they'd say, "Oh, I've got it.
Yeah,
I've done it. Yeah, bought the T-shirt. Thanks. Very good question. Right, where are we going next? We've got some hands further towards the back.
Hiya, Ronan Palliser from Dublin. A quick question for Andreas, which is the 56 Mark II.
Yes.
It's on the roadmap for 2022.
Yes.
Will we see it before the clocks change and the winter weddings come in?
Do it. That should be said with like a horror film over. By the time that the clocks change. By the time the clock hits 12.
Yeah. Could you deliver a time as well where it may be?
Officially, I cannot say.
Okay.
But
this is audio, so you can nod or you can shake your head.
Might it be lighter in the mornings or darker?
Depending on where the wind blows. The thing is, as you said, it's on the roadmap. We have announced that we have got an X Summit in September. We probably wouldn't add lots of things to that X Summit, apart from what we've teased already. So
enough said.
Yeah.
And a quick follow-up. I photographed a wedding in 2020 where the bride walked up the aisle wearing a mask and her dad was 2 meters behind wearing a mask. And when I look back on that, that was like peak COVID for me. I'm just wondering for yourself, Neil and Kevin, when you think back at the last 2 years and what's happened since the last live show, what's your like peak COVID moment, or is there a picture or a moment that you photographed that kind of speaks to that will stick with you forever?
Do you mean photographically or emotionally or both?
Probably photographically, but it could be either.
Oh. In terms of, I had similar experiences to you. Trying to work out how am I going to photograph this without this person thinking, there's a mask in my picture, or almost every single photograph. I mean, if it was emotional, it would be definitely the afternoons that I spent recording the podcast with Kev when we went 7 days a week. I think
78 episodes.
Was it 78 episodes? I mean, that was cathartic to say the least during that period.
I got a great picture of Gemma. It was, I can't remember.
Hold on, Gemma.
There was so many lockdowns, I can't remember which one it was now. But basically, we were explaining to the kids that they weren't going to school for the next 500 years or something. And Rosa was pretty sad because she was like, she's at that age where she likes her friends and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So Gemma's explaining it. Rosa's going, and Albie's next door going. It's like the complete opposite. So one of them was chuffed, one of them was heartbroken.
And you photographed that moment?
I got a picture somewhere. Yeah. Particularly good picture, but I got that one. So I think that was it for me. Like the yin and yang of the kids, and that kind of that one time when we all went to school one day, and then he said, actually no.
Yeah.
Changed it again. And, all of the dramas and everything of that.
Did you get the reverse picture when you said, tomorrow, kids, you're going back?
Albie was devastated. It seems like ages ago now, doesn't it? The C word.
Yeah.
It seems like ages ago.
Yeah.
Which is good.
So I know the question wasn't asked for me, but I have an answer.
Please.
And for me, that is peak COVID. So somehow my wife and I managed to get on 3 or 4 holidays abroad during the 2 years.
But nobody flew. What were you doing? Was it private jet?
As cargo. And it's the busiest beach in Cyprus, and literally you can't move half a metre.
Not there, it's not, no.
But it is empty completely. Yeah. So you can't see another person for 100 metres. And that was because it was the September 6 months in, and so we were just coming out of the first, or like it was the whole eat out to give each other COVID scheme that the government put out. And we decided to go to Cyprus for like 10 days. We managed to get there, go to this beach, and it was like, by the pool, it was us and another family. And so like, there were like normally 300 sunbeds, and it was only 2 of us. And that for me is peak COVID, and I'll never experience that ever again. So yeah.
I remember coming here, and I can't remember why. It must have been
in your sleep. Or
no, I came here, and it was. I think it was the first. It was a Friday, and it was like the first day that we were allowed to go on trains and stuff. But the tubes weren't running.
Yeah.
And I was coming here for some reason. I can't quite remember why. And I walked, so I had to walk from Paddington. I was the only person on the train. I walked from Paddington to here, and I walked through Leicester Square, and it was like 10 a.m. on a Friday morning, and it was me and a road sweeper, and that was it.
Yeah.
Wow. I helped him with his sweeping up.
Did you? Okay. Good question. Right, where are we going next with this?
Hello, my name's Leon. Over the past 3.5 years, you've had some amazing interviews and guest speakers come on. Who would you love to see on the podcast next?
Ooh.
I don't know. It's the way that it works generally is Neil and I pester people and they either ignore us long enough or they accept. I mean, I'd love to speak to Darcy Padilla again. Spoke about that. Yeah, I mean, there's loads. There's just loads, like loads. Although sometimes we do because the way that we do it now that we've gone monthly is that I do one interview 1 month and Neil will do the one next month. And so, we kind of look for our own interviewees.
Although we have talked about, we have sort of dallianced with every other week again, haven't we? In which case it will probably be one interview stretched out. You'd have part one, start of the month, part 2.
Should we ask a vote?
Should we do that as a vote? If you would like it to go every...
Bi-weekly.
Bi-monthly, isn't it?
Bi-monthly.
Yeah.
Bi-weekly is twice a week.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, don't do
Fortnightly.
Hang on a moment.
Fortnightly?
Are we going into another lockdown? Yeah, but with a guest sort of part 1 and part 2 during the month. Who would go for that? Yeah, nobody. So
no. Everyone's lost control of their role.
Yeah, so that was an idea we talked about.
Yeah,
that doesn't really answer your guest question.
Yeah, that's a similar question to like which photographer you'd like to spend the day with, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
It's always that way.
Yeah. I think some of the perhaps new ex-photographers would be really interesting.
Yeah,
definitely to hear what they have to say and their story and what's going to be happening in the future. I think that would be a great place. Certainly over the next couple of months, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, and I quite like the interviews with some of the designers and things like that.
The designers. I think we need to work on getting this podcast to Japan.
Well, I was just about to say that. If we went to Japan, we'd do a factory tour.
That's easily arranged.
Oh, well, there we go.
Wow.
Who would like that? Anybody like to come to Japan? Every hand has gone up. Right, okay.
Hands up if you'd like to go to Japan twice a week.
Okay, next question. Here we go. Right at the back.
How you doing? I'm Denver. Andreas, don't worry, it's not going to be about film, so you've escaped this year. A lot of the questions kind of what if have been really good. So I know for me, like if I could do anything with photography, it would either be a kind of personal photography to a band like Shinedown or Blackstone Cherry or Cadillac 3, something like that, or onboard reporting for the Volvo Ocean Race. If you could go and shoot anything, because obviously we're familiar with what you do, what would be your dream thing to go and do for a living, photography-wise, or is actually what you do your dream?
Well, you answer that first, Andreas. Is marketing executive your dream job?
So I studied physics, so like I'm as far away from and I was saying this to somebody that what they study and what they will end up doing as a job, two different things, and probably because they're 15 right now as a friend's son, their job hasn't been invented yet. So I think I like the idea and the glamour of motorsport F1 photography. But the homebody in me goes, there'll be some weeks you go, I can't bother to get on another plane and what have you. But if I removed my own personality from me for a second and said what would be my dream job, it would probably be an F1 motorsport photographer. But I think it's just the glitz, the glamour, that side of thing that appeals to me. But I love what I do in terms of being able to speak to end users, work in what is my hobby, enable people to, yes, we obviously have a lot of people who do photography as a profession, so it is their livelihood and they are relying on it, but it is also the hobby of a lot of people. So I feel very fortunate in the job that I do already, so hence why I'm not becoming a Formula One photographer, because I could if I wanted to. No.
I'd like to do something like, I'm not going to call it more worthy than weddings, because that's wrong, but something that has a different kind of storytelling, that kind of thing. I would, I'd probably be scared stiff to go out with the Met Police on a Saturday night, but I think photographing it sounds like a real challenge and very interesting, and I think I'd love to have a go. Maybe I wouldn't. Oh goodness, yeah, Denver works for the Metropolitan.
We can arrange that.
Yeah, and that sort of thing. I once had an opportunity to go up with the air ambulance. It was the most incredible afternoon, and I felt exceptionally fortunate. And then to watch these people, these professionals at work, was incredible. And if I could make my photographic living doing that kind of thing with those kind of people, well, fabulous.
I would like, so I have a list. I actually have a list somewhere at home in my studio of the 50 people. 50 people who have been hugely influential in my life.
Oh.
And I'd like to just go around the world and take pictures of them.
Ah, wow.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, that's
although some of them are dead.
Oh.
Yeah.
So just be a very static landscape.
Might just be their tombstone or something,
tombstone,
but
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that still counts,
but
doesn't
that's
it?
it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
actually, I've got this vision of it being portraits, not kind of candid or anything, but I want to hunt down these people.
Oh dear, are they ready for it?
And yeah. So yeah, that's what I want to do.
That's really good.
So it's not a job because you wouldn't get paid for it, but that's something that I would like to do at some point when I win the lottery.
Yeah. Keep practicing. Right, next question. Where are we going?
Hi, I'm Kent. Question for Andreas. What's your view on manual lenses, third-party ones?
I think that any lens that allows a photographer to create a vision they see fit is great. The more lenses a system has available to it, the better. Same with adapters and things like that. Ultimately, it's just encouraging people to be creative. Technically speaking, Fujifilm do make manual lenses in terms of our cine lenses. That's like it's all manual focus and what have you. Do I see us making small, compact primes that are manual? No. But in terms of all these third parties making non-traditional focal length or apertures or effects that they give, I think it's great for any system, and it allows and encourages creativity.
Okay, right. We've got another question at the front. We've got one over here, and I've somebody is in the audience who sent in a question actually, which I'm going to read. And if you want to take the microphone to Emily, she might want to add some extra bits in. A question from De Belgian. I'm thinking about having the whole of December off shooting, except for blogging, SEO, etc. Do you think it's a bad idea? Kev, when did you start to take the whole of August off? And how did it affect you or your business to start with? I am kind of overdoing it this season, and I know I will reach a point in November when it dies down for me. So I thought about maybe not accepting any work at all for December, just taking some extended time off. That was the gist of it, wasn't it, Emily? Do you still feel like that?
Yeah, no, that's the question. Well, yeah, that's the question.
So, Kev, I mean, I've always thought it's a bit strange how a wedding photographer could possibly have the whole of August off. I know why you do it, and it's fantastic for the family. But so it clearly worked for you, didn't it? You're not going to say it's a bad idea for Emily to take the entire December off.
I'd never take December off. Ridiculous. No, I think, look, it doesn't matter when it is. You work for yourself. That's the whole point of it. You 100%. If you work for yourself, it has to be about putting your life first. Otherwise, you might as well work for the man. And make the man richer, and you just plod along.
Which man? Which man?
The man is the man, isn't it?
Surely it's the woman as well.
Is it Boris?
Well, the man is mostly Boris.
Because we've still got Boris loans.
But yeah, I've still got Boris loans.
Yeah.
But if you're working for yourself, then you do what works for you. And if if in your business mind or your business plan, you decide you want to take a month off or 6 weeks off or 2 years off, whatever, and the economics are strong behind it, are sound behind it, then do it. How many weddings do you shoot on an average August, pre-pandemic?
Well, pre-pandemic, it was maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah, 8 or 9 weddings in 1 month.
Yeah, and
Right,
that's
a lot.
with working a holiday in as well.
That's a lot. So August is, August to wedding photographers is like Christmas to Santa, isn't it? So you can make a lot of money in that period.
So
but
are there
also
any
you can go.
opportunities that you feel you've missed out on because you've taken August off?
No, I just would never go back to not doing that.
So
Never.
you don't feel you've ever missed something? You go, oh, if only. Because I remember we launched. I think we gave you the 50R to test out. And you're like, if you want it during August, you're going to get my kids in a pool sort of photos.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, that's it. It's a non. It has always been a non-negotiable, and that sounds. I know that sounds a little bit. What's the word?
Pig-headed.
Yeah, a bit, but it's.
Sorry, that was too quick, wasn't it?
it's what everyone's thinking. Yeah. But the fact is, it's like I can do it because I work hard through the rest of the year doing whatever workshops, presets, weddings in November in Barnes in Middlesbrough or something. That's what I'll do.
Sorry for anybody that's booked Kev in Middlesbrough.
I personally do not see the point in just breaking your back and having a healthier bank balance. I'd rather have a little bit less, but a better lifestyle. And that's you absolutely have to work that out because it's not. And this is only obviously if you're working for yourself. If you're not working for yourself, if you're like Andreas is employed, but he presumably enjoys his job, has good.
Still take December off in Australia.
Yeah, I mean Andreas is always in Australia or Cyprus when he's not allowed to travel. But whether it manifests itself as taking a month off, or whether it manifests itself as buying a posh car, or whether it manifests itself as going on a really, really nice short holiday, whatever, something that's a little bit out of the norm that only you can control, then I think that's like an absolute must thing to do, if you're self-employed. Otherwise, I just don't see the point. I just don't see the point.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. Right, let's move this microphone around and see who we go to next.
Hi, I'm Martin. I see Andreas didn't really react to Paul's comment on the X80, so I won't go there.
I didn't hear an official question.
Oh, okay.
Ask it.
So I'm a volunteer photographer for a charity called Remember My Baby.
Oh, brilliant. Well done. Yeah.
And we often turn up at hospitals, which have really poor lighting. I have a Pro X3, and I use my X100V, and I have an external flash. And we quite often are in very poorly lit environments that aren't really designed for any sort of photography. So any tips and tricks to get the best out of my equipment in such an environment?
Well, first of all, well done for working for Remember My Baby. I know they're an amazing outfit. Kev, I mean, obviously it's the other end of the story, really, with the birth photography that you've done. But you're used to being in those environments with that kind of.
Yeah, there's no point asking me about flash at all. But
No.
one thing I would, So I don't know whether you've. I literally cannot put myself in the position where you could do that, or like you're thinking about it. So I don't know the circumstances of what you would be allowed or not. But I use a little LED constant light source.
So like LED panel or something like that.
Well, you use the tiny Lumimuse, don't you? It's even smaller than a light panel.
It's like this big.
Yeah, tiny.
Could be an option.
I suppose the other thing is, the question is, how far are you happy to push your ISO from a light perspective? Because it's a how long is a piece of string question. People will say 3200 is too high, 6400 is acceptable, etc. So it's finding that balance. LED constant light sources have come a huge leaps and bounds over the past few years. So it might be something like that to look into, but again, it depends on the look that you're going for. But how you make the most out of your kit, use primes to get brighter, faster lenses, push your ISO up, the traditional things that you're already aware of. You're probably not doing anything there's no magic secret sort of thing, unfortunately. But I would say have a look at LED panels. You get really thin panels nowadays that can light up a room.
Well, there's a wonderful one. Who makes Neo?
Rotolite.
Rotolite, that's it. And the Neo 2 is out, isn't it? So I've
Three.
got the three now. I've got the original one, and I still love it. And that's I think it's a very subtle light panel.
Yeah.
Where some of them are huge light floating into the room, but maybe put that on a tripod and move it away from you, so it doesn't feel like it's emanating from the photographer. Then you've lit up in a way that maybe these lights. I mean, I've not put the lights there, but they're there, so you could essentially put your own lighting somewhere else. Now that means that the lighting will be more creative, perhaps. That could be a way, because you're removing the light stem, if you like, from yourself, aren't you? You're putting it over there, and so therefore it might not seem quite so intrusive, because it's not part of you. No. It's somewhere else. But those Neos are fantastic.
Yeah, and we've recently bought a set for the studio downstairs. Yeah,
and that's they flash as well. The new ones, don't they?
Yeah,
2s did, 1 doesn't. Certainly.
Stop there, Neil.
Right. Okay.
In terms of Rotolites,
I'm going to get my book out.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, and fantastic work working for that charity. Amazing. Right. Next question.
Yeah. Hi. I'm Michael. And I wanted to ask you about your thoughts about the evolution of social media. With recently the Instagram turning back on photographers, and in general, social media being like a constant treadmill. What are the best alternatives to promoting through social media, and how do you see it evolving?
Is that the way you feel it is, just a constant treadmill now?
Yeah, like a need to feed the machine with new stuff.
Facebook is the one that really, I find that just, I don't really know what to do with it anymore. I mean, we have this fantastic group, and that's great because there's great engagement in it. But for anybody that's starting up a company now using Facebook and trying to get your posts seen, I don't know how that would even happen.
I agree completely. You almost we're trapped into this social media where we have to be part of it. From a personal perspective, I've removed myself from Facebook, and I tried to do Instagram as well, but I realised that Instagram was a way for friends and family to see my daughter growing up, so I went back on Instagram. And the only Facebook account I have is for work, to keep you lot in check as much as possible and get the abuse, of course. But from a business perspective, we've noticed our own social media channels fluctuates massively in terms of losing followers and things like that, but you are constantly have to posting a couple of times a day or so, like, and then it has to be always engaging, and you are having to pump a lot of money in to make sure that those posts that you historically were going to hit people organically actually find the right people.
And of course now you're fighting this battle that Instagram want to be TikTok, don't they? So everything has to be a video. There's a really useful bit of software called Headliner, and I use it for one of my Instagram channels. And effectively, you put a still on there, you can mix it with some sound, and you get the moving wave band, so it makes it look a bit more attractive, doesn't it? I mean, it's not just a still image with some sound, which all feels the wrong word, obviously, for wedding photography, but divorced from it. But if something like Headline is great, and I noticed the engagement on films was great. Yeah. And I actually started to think, well, what about in weddings if I just took, because as some of you will know, I record the audio at weddings. If I just took some of the snippets, some of the really gold snippets that you do hear sometimes, some lovely stuff said in speeches, take that, put it over a still picture, run it through Headliner, and the engagement will obviously hopefully follow like it does on one of my other Instagram accounts. And that's the way that I'm going to deal with it. I'm just going to put them up as more films because Instagram seems to, it's flavour of the month at the moment, isn't it? But Kev, you've got a very different take on this, because Instagram is still being, I think, somewhat successful for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram probably drives 25% of my inquiries.
Yeah.
I have literally no idea what I've done, but I don't get any adverts on Instagram. I see stills only. I never see any of those wheelie things. It's good. My reach is reasonable, I think, considering. But what I don't do, and what I've never done, and what a lot of people did, and what a lot of people still do, is try and beat the system. So by that, they do things like, billions of hashtags. Doesn't make sense. They do ... hashtag. And the reason they're doing that ... is because they don't want their potential clients to see the hashtag, so they think they're hiding it. And the fellow what wrote Instagram, he's a brainy fella, and so he knows that when he sees ... what you're trying to do is fool him, and it's not going to work. It just won't work. It just won't. You can't fool the system. Interact, reply to the comments.
Do you believe people get penalised?
Converse, people will get penalised. Yeah, buy-in. I mean, not so much now, but like buy-in followers, all of that kind of stuff. If you ever did that once on your Instagram account, you guaranteed you will be penalised. Like guaranteed. Some to a greater extent than others. The hashtag thing is crazy. People. I mean, we've talked about this loads of times on the podcast. But there's a picture of a wedding, and it's hashtag wedding, hashtag wedding dress, hashtag wedding, hashtag woman, hashtag man, hashtag shoes, hashtag dogs, cats, blue skies, red sky. It's like totally irrelevant. And if somebody clicks on hashtag blue skies, they're not going to look in for a wedding photographer, so you're wasting it. And so I would say 3 or 4 hashtags max is probably enough. Just be totally organic with your more text, sticking a picture on there and just saying, lovely wedding yesterday is not going to give you reach. Good conversational content on Instagram, and I'm sure it works. I'm absolutely sure it works. There's Instagram gets a really big. I don't post regularly. I post when I have something to post. I think the last one was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I think Instagram gets a bad rap because people expect them to do their marketing for themselves. So I'm going to get an Instagram account, I'm going to put my pictures up there, and then the phone's going to ring and I'm going to get loads of business. And when that doesn't work, Instagram's rubbish. It's not. It's like blaming the yellow pages for nobody ringing. It's your effort has got to go into it, and you've got to be natural and organic, and you've got to put the right stuff out there. And Instagram is not going to make things more difficult for us on purpose. It doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? They will be doing as much as possible to get as many things in front of as many people as possible. Yes, of course, there's paid for adverts and what have you. But they're not purposely going to be putting you at the bottom, just and chuckling at you, going, hashtag. It's not. You just be just be natural with it. But it's a very, very long tail game, I think. And try. I mean, I could talk about this for hours. But people, they do like social media scheduling, and they have apps, AppSumo and all this and all that, and I'm going to Thursday at 3:00 is the best time for me to post because that's when most people are online. Yeah, wasting your life. Just post when you want to post and just be like a normal person. I think that's the best way. I honestly think that's the best way. And it does drive, I would say 20-25% of my
you say it's a huge part of your
inquiries are from Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, a few more questions. We got a few more moments of the show remaining.
We've only got luggage tags left, but they do say Fujifilm on them.
we're down to the luggage tags.
We're down to luggage tags.
Luggage tags and a pen.
Front row.
So this is Joey from New York. I can't believe we've made it this far without a question about firmware updates, frankly.
I can't believe you came all the way from New York and you got the luggage tag.
So I'm going to try and ask this as charitably as possible for Andreas. Yeah. Can you tell us how Fujifilm's viewpoint on firmware updates has evolved over the 10-year history of the X-mount?
Right. I mean, so I think this applies to most brands actually, but from our perspective, what happened was we launched a camera, and in the nicest possible way, the engineers knew a bit of what they were doing, not everything. So what happens is you start with a sensor and you start with a processor, and over time you go, well, actually, we can get a bit more out of it, or we can make it do this. And instead of like other brands thinking, well, we'll just release another camera with those features, we actually updated the firmware. And a lot of the kudos that we got from photographers was like, look, Fujifilm are giving back, because ultimately the camera came with X amount of features, and now we're adding more features to it because we're learning how sensors and processors work ultimately, and interchangeable lenses work, and how the lenses and what have you. And as that has evolved over time, I think naturally firmware updates have decreased because the engineers and the product planners have understood more at the start of a product's life cycle how to get the most out of the product. So a lot of I suppose the biggest criticism we've had is, hang on a minute, that sensor and that processor is exactly the same. I should be able to have exactly the same film simulations. It doesn't always work like that, primarily from other components are needed in order to get certain things out. So how it's evolved was, I think it was the team were learning as much as anything. There was a lot of feedback from the likes of Kevin and other photographers about what features we should have, what features were possible from a firmware perspective, what needed hardware upgrades as well. And then we became trapped for a long time because we have got all this goodwill from people, and then automatically we goes, well, I'm not buying another camera ever again. It has to come with a firmware update. You sort of like we got everyone hooked on firmware updates, thinking that was the way to get more out of your system. And I think what's happened is the product planners and the engineers have know more from the start, because we know we have more experience when it comes to working with these sensors and processors. So that's really how it's evolved, in terms of we were learning at the same time, and we thought actually it's a good way to give back in terms of constant improvement and features. But then it became like a drug everyone was hooked on, and everyone started demanding. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, we didn't sell you the camera and we said it had XYZ feature at the start, so you shouldn't expect it, but then you're in this vicious cycle, and it's very hard to get out of.
Okay, I think I saw one more hand, I think, and then we're heading toward the last knockings of the show.
Cian here. I recently bought a photographic print from one of my favourite photographers, who's John Blakemore. He's very old, and it'll be the last series that he ever does. And I also have a very large silver halide print from John Swanell. It's almost the centrepiece of our living room. So do any of the three of you buy other photographers' prints? And if so, do you put them up on the wall, or do you keep them hidden away? Is it something that you like to invest in?
I do buy prints from time to time, and I bought a John Swanell as well, funnily enough. So the answer is yes from me. One of my favourite prints is actually from a very good friend of mine, who I talk about often, who lives in the same town, Giles Penfound, who was an army photographer, and there's an image of there's a couple of images I've had from him, and one of them is of a little girl with an Aeroflot box, and she's asking for money, and there's this picture that he took when he covered the Bosnian war, and everybody was just walking on by. It was just a flurry of feet. It's not a particularly nice subject, but it was just such a beautifully emotive, if I can use those two words together correctly, picture. So for me, yeah, I think it's very, yeah. And a Bert Hardy. I'm very proud of my Bert Hardy.
No. I ain't got none. I haven't. I was sat there thinking, this is terrible.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I've got a couple of Martin Parr prints.
See, that counts.
But they were given, and also a Louis Garvan print,
Yeah.
which was given. But no, I don't think...
Is that the one you tried to sell?
I tried to put it on eBay, yeah. I don't think I've got any that I bought. I've got hundreds of books, but not prints.
Yeah.
Thing is, Gemma just wouldn't, like...
Hold on, Gemma. Yeah.
It just, no, it's not going to...
What if you came back with a thumping great big, I don't know, Litchfield, and he said, this cost me £7,500. It's great, Gemma. It's going to go up in value.
The thing is, Gemma's far more artistically minded than I am.
Right.
Like far more. And the stuff we do have on the walls is, well, I wouldn't call it, you can't say proper art, but you know, when they've used pens and paints and things.
colouring in by numbers.
Colouring in stuff.
Posh colouring in.
Like that.
You're the sort of person that goes to the Tate, aren't you, and says, my kid could have done this.
I can't even draw a straight line, but Gemma's a very, very good artist.
Yeah.
So that tends to be what we might have in our house. But yeah, I am quite...
Have you bought anything, Andreas? Any?
No, similar to Kevin. I mean, we are blessed in that we have beautiful wives that are very artistic and in nature. And my wife, we were recently at Photo London, and she bought some prints.
Yeah.
I don't know from who. I just knew I had to go and pick them up on the Sunday when the exhibition closed. That was all I was.
And what were they? Do you know what they were? Or?
I have no idea.
That sounds expensive.
I was going to say, yeah. I was just listening to the fact that I had to go back into London. So no, we've got. My wife's really good in terms of curating stuff that she's collected over the years, be it posh colouring in, as Kevin calls it, or prints. But no, I've never bought anything myself.
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you everybody for turning up. Here we are, 878 days after Kev said to me, "You don't think we're going to have a lockdown, do you?" And I said, "No, Kev, don't be daft." So thank you very much for coming along. It's great to see smiley faces again at the House of Photography, which is brilliant. Thank you for your questions. Thank you also for our speakers today.
Yeah.
So appreciate your time, and we should give them a round of applause as well for Dan and Kat Shearer. We will be back in the studio, of course, for the next show, and keep sending your questions in. Send them to click@fujicast.co.uk. Kev always gives us the how do you take part in the Facebook bit.
Go to Facebook, go to the FujiCast Facebook group, and it's the pinned thread at the top, questions for the show. And I do get a little bit angry when people answer the questions in that thread.
Oh, I've stopped doing that.
Yes. Yes. That's why it says questions for the show thread.
Okay. Be warned. Thank you very much. A big round of applause. Thank you. House of Photography.
The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.